welcome to episode 49 of Retro Recall the PS1 Chronicles, a show where we play and rank every PlayStation game ever created. My name is Jimmy, and as always, I'm here with Mike.
Hello. So, episode 49, we're coming up on that year.
Yeah, first sequel, Crash. I mean, I can't think of a better way to do this.
No, not at all. We started the show with Crash. We might as well just year anniversary. Let's go back into it.
I was hoping it was going to be episode 50 just because, perfect number, but what are you going to do?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out that way, but I was excited to get back into this. Obviously, the first one was problematic, to say the least. I know the third one the best. Second one, I was iffy on with my memory, so I was very excited to get back into this.
So this is my favorite of the originals. I know this one very, very well. So I'm very excited to get into this.
Which is great because I'm probably going to have a lot of questions and you're going to be able to answer them.
Yeah, I actually still remembered a lot of the secrets and a lot of the weird little things. I didn't remember them all, but, as you'll see in the footage here, some of the things I've done, I don't think you would have ever thought to do if you didn't know.
Probably not.
But yeah, with that, let's just go ahead and hop in. Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back, was released on November 5th, 1997. It was developed by Naughty Dog and published by Sony. And this is a 2.5D platformer. I was actually looking up what people consider the genre of the Crash games to be. Mm-hmm. And some people call them like hallway platformers because you're like mostly going down these hallways, and other people said linear 3D platformer, but I don't know.
It works.
Those are all certainly genres,
Yeah. It just comes out of like with music genres where people argue about it. I'm like, it's just music. If you like it, you like it. We don't have to get so nitty gritty with what it is.
Yeah, it's all the same. I mean, it's a platformer, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So right off the bat, even as a kid, I love this, how whenever you start the second game, it takes place seconds after the first game. Anytime anything does that, I love it.
I agree. The cutscenes, I think, are a clear improvement from the first one.
Cutscenes as in the warp rooms or what?
The beginning cutscene, and I mean, the stuff in the warp rooms is fine, but I'm talking about like the actual beginning cutscene, because in Crash 1, there's only that in the end, just like this one.
True. Yeah. And it's also just with everything else, the integration between the two games. Like you start immediately playing the first level of the first game, which I forgot about. So whenever we're doing this, I'm like, isn't this just the first game again? I don't remember any of this. And whenever you...
Is it?
What? I'm pretty sure... it's not 1-to-1 with the first level. I'm pretty sure it's pretty close to what that first level is in the first game.
If that's true, I did not know that or remember that. But either way, I mean, the very beginning, when you watch the cutscene, you do that little weird tutorial level. I think it's cool regardless of if it's the same or not.
Oh, exactly. And it's just a very well done transition into like, you're thinking it's the same exact game, and then it transitions into those warp rooms, and you're like, well, this is a huge upgrade from the last game.
I will say I do miss the map a little bit.
You actually like the map layout?
Just because like of the visuals, and it feels like you're progressing more, and it feels, like you're in the world. Whereas like when you're in these warp rooms, this one and the third one, it's, you could be going literally anywhere,
True. I do like how the map is okay, and I get what you're saying with that, but I like the warp rooms just because you have free choice of what you do. If you're like, oh, I don't want to play this one next, I want to do this one, you're allowed. It's not, oh, I got to beat this one first and then move to the next one.
I agree with that. No, I mean, the ability to select what you want to play, especially if you get stuck on something or, you're trying to 100% it, you don't know what to do, you kind of go through it. There's plenty of options for how you want to play this game, which is cool.
Mm-hmm. And it just shows how much more, because they easily could have made, oh, we're gonna have another map that you have to follow. So it just shows that they're thinking ahead and, oh, how can we do this a little bit better than last time? So it's a very nice touch.
Yeah, and I mean, getting into more improvements, I think the controls overall are just night and day better than Crash 1.
Yeah, though I don't know if this was just me. Did you notice that whenever you go to jump over a box, he snaps to it a little bit?
Just a little bit, but I kind of love it.
I was fighting that the entire time.
Really?
It was weird that it was giving me a helping hand of like, oh, we're gonna snap you over top of the box just a tiny bit, and I kept overcorrecting and going too far or too short, trying to like get that snapping in. It was messing me up a lot this time.
I kind of think I know what you mean, but it only happens sometimes though, right? It doesn't happen whenever it's like a really tough platforming challenge with the boxes, right?
Yeah, it's so subtle. I only really noticed it on pretty much the bonus stages whenever you had to jump horizontal or left or right to the boxes. I felt it more. It was a weird choice because it's not a full snap, but it's not like not there. So you're trying to fight it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it really changed my experience, and I don't really even think I would have brought it up if you didn't, honestly.
It was annoying me at some points in the game.
But there's two new moves in this game. There's the slide,
Yep.
and there's the body slam.
Which I couldn't remember if the body slam was new. I knew the slide was.
Both of those are new for this game because they have those like metal crates you have to break with the body slam.
And with the slide, you have to do the slide jump.
I think the slide and the slide jump are amazing. It is so fun.
There's so many times where like it's absolutely necessary, and I don't know if it says it in the manual or not. But I was just thinking, could you imagine as a kid, you're going through and you don't know that that's a thing, and you're just stuck on a level because you can't reach a particular ledge?
Yeah, I mean, this game doesn't tell you about the new stuff, but I don't know. As you're playing and you're pushing buttons, I think you could figure it out.
Yeah.
I do think the body slam is fucking bullshit and stupid.
You don't like it?
Why is it even there? Like, just to make you jump on boxes?
That's true. It really serves no purpose aside from just those boxes. I don't think I've ever really used it on an enemy that I can think of.
It just slows you down so much and like kills the momentum.
Yep.
Because like there's the rock boulder level where it's coming at you, and it wants you to stop and do a metal crate. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Sorry.
That was the last box I missed on that level. And I don't care enough to go back and try that again.
Yeah, I mean, this also introduces the nitro boxes too, which if you touch, you die.
Yep. The biggest complaint with that is I felt like the hitbox on those were very finicky. There were times when I swore I cleared it and I blew up, not knowing why.
Yeah, there's a lot of the times, especially later in the game, where they want you to be very meticulous about stepping between them or like jumping between them.
Yep.
And if you just mess up a little bit, it's all over for you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that just leads me into my other thing about the hitboxes on these is that there's a TNT box and a box on top of it. I went to jump on top of that box and I managed to hit the TNT box, but not the top box. And I don't know what happened.
I get really frustrated where there is a box on top of the TNT box and you have to jump and spin to get it.
Yep.
I don't know what the proper timing is for that. I never figured it out.
Nope.
I usually just die a few times and then be like, you know what? I don't care.
So, okay, a big thing too, a big improvement on this game is if you die, all the boxes you collected prior are still counted towards it.
Yes.
Love that. But is it that if a TNT blows up the box, does that still count as the box being destroyed?
Yes, I'm pretty sure it does.
Okay. Then maybe I'm missing other boxes and levels because there was one time I saw one box next to like nitro boxes and I left it and I went finished the game, hit the box to destroy all the nitro boxes, and I was missing one box, which had to have been that one box that was next to all the nitro boxes. So maybe it didn't break, is my only guess.
Maybe you're right then. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. This game also has like gems that you get in weird ways and like random paths you can take, secret paths to get more boxes. Like there's an overwhelming amount of secrets in this game.
There are. I found one the entire time.
So the ones that I knew about, there's the one in, I want to say it's the second like river level where you're riding.
Okay.
And before you get on the little board, there's boxes scattered. And if you jump on them, you land. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
That was one of those ones. I didn't do that one. That's not the one I found. But it was after I jumped onto the board and I destroyed those boxes. And I paused for a moment like, damn it, I needed to jump on those. And I completely forgot.
Yeah, there's also the things that you jump on and they're like a little platform. Sometimes they might be like wireframe. You can only go on those if you haven't died on the level yet.
Oh, that's what that is. Okay.
And a lot of the time, if you want to get all the boxes, you have to do that too.
Yeah. I thought those were those gems that you have to find a gem that appears there and then you can then ride that to where you needed to go.
So the game also has that.
Ah, okay.
But usually you can tell the difference because like one is the gem shape, you know?
Okay. That makes a lot more sense because I was very confused by that. The only one I found was after the one polar bear level that you're riding it.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to go backwards and jump on that one platform.
Yeah, both of those times it takes you to a secret warp room, which is cool.
I was very confused because when I went through that and it put me back into a level I already did, I'm like, but I did this already. Why am I doing this again?
Yeah, so you can get certain gems or get all the boxes or something. Like,
yeah.
Some of the gems are weird though. Like, what is it? The very first level of the game, to get the gem, you have to not get any boxes at all on the whole level.
How would you know that?
You wouldn't.
Like you already knew that going into it?
I didn't do it this time and I forgot about it, but I did know that.
Oh wow. And it goes back to what we talked about with the very first game of how just tricky they are, but who would ever figure that out ever?
I think it's just one of those things you would hear from someone at school, or you would get like a guide or like one of those cheat books or something, and that's how you would find out.
I guess, yeah.
But in the third level, the one we're watching now, the river level, whenever you're playing it, a timer pops up on the screen.
Which I was very confused about.
To get a special gem, you have to beat the level in the rest of that time. So you get a minute. I did it in this video too. So
I never ever thought that was what it was. I thought that's how much time you have left on the board before it blows up. So I was trying to hurry up and rush to get off of it and not die.
I could see how you would think that, but then it happens one other time too, and it's the same thing, I believe. It's just that one is harder.
Yeah, I thought something was going to happen, and I was just scared, so I was rushing to get off of it. Did not know that that's what that meant. And again, how would you know?
Yeah. But also, you can save whenever you want in this game, which is pretty cool.
You can. They definitely took a lot of the complaints we had with the first one and said, okay, well, how do we make this better for this one? Because especially when you go into the bonus stages, you don't lose lives now. So you can die 100 times and you're completely fine.
I like that. And I like that they use that as an excuse to make some of the bonus levels just hard as hell.
Yep.
I do feel like the difficulty is very random though. Like it's like you'll be playing a hard ass level and the bonus level is easy. You'll be playing an easy level and all of a sudden the bonus level is kicking your ass to get every box.
Yep. There's been so many bonus levels where I put about 6 attempts into it and I'm like, you know what? I don't care that much. I haven't 100%ed most of these levels, so I'm not worried about it now.
I did exactly what we said going into this, where I tried my best to do the things I knew about and try and get all the boxes, but I didn't obsess over it.
Exactly. I was not going to waste more time than I needed. Whenever I did 100% a level, it was just because of me playing the level. There were a few I went out of my way to try. And if I was still missing one box, okay, well, then I'm not going to try again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of how I was. I have 100% of this game before. It is a lot to do.
I bet.
I did it in the original as a kid, and then I did it again in the Insane trilogy when they made that.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, this is 10 years ago at this point, so I don't remember everything.
Were there any other improvements? I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
I can't think of anything else. I think just the general controls and all the things we already mentioned is really where the improvements are. There is stuff that didn't get better, and there is stuff that's worse sometimes, but we'll get into that as we go.
Okay. Yeah, I think aside from that, it's the same game. It is just Crash 1, but now there's some quality of life improvements overall, which is nice. It's good to see that it's progressing instead of just being a copy paste from the first one.
How long did it take you to beat this, by the way?
Just barely under 4 hours. What about you?
Okay, I mean, that's about the same for me, about 3.5.
Again, there were times when I was obsessing over bonus levels.
Me too.
Or obsessing over a specific part. And so I think roughly if you play well, each warp room would take you about a half hour.
Until the later ones, when you have to start, struggling a little bit.
Yes. But for the most part, it's fairly straightforward. But cool. I thought maybe you got it done a lot faster than me.
Well, I think this is shorter than the first one, right?
I forgot to check before we started recording because I was very curious about that too. It feels so much faster than the first one.
Well, this brings me into my next point. This game is way easier than the first one.
I'm glad you brought it up because that was a negative in my book.
Until you get to Warp Rooms 4 and 5.
Yes. It's the weirdest choice. And we'll go through each like specific warp room and whatnot, but I was kind of bored getting through all these in a sense. But then like I don't remember this being so simple. And then when I get to 4, that's when I started losing most of my lives. And then 5 was just destroying me on some of the parts.
So I had about 60 to 70 lives at one point.
Oof. Okay, you were doing a lot better than me.
Well, I just know this game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think where a lot of the fun comes into is not, just completing the levels. It's getting everything.
Yeah, it's just figuring it out, collecting the things you need to collect. And it just being a constant challenge of, like, even with the boxes, just some of the ridiculous stuff you have to do just to get that one box, but you absolutely need that one box if you want to complete it.
That's what I mean. It's like that is where you're going to spend most of your time if you're playing this. Like, if you just beeline it, I bet you could beat this game in 2.5 hours.
Easily.
But I don't know what kind of person cannot play this and want to get everything. Because it hurt me to move on. I'm like, but I have to.
Yep. I really, really wanted to try to 100% or at least get the gems in almost all the levels. I just couldn't do it. But you said you beat this before 100% it. Mm-hmm. What happens if you get all of the gems? Is there something special like with the first game?
I don't remember.
Oh. Because like with the first game, you had that specific thing of you need all the gems to get to that secret area.
There is something like that. I just don't remember.
Oh, okay.
It's been like 10 years. I'm sorry.
I completely get that.
But yeah, we also didn't mention that in addition to beating the levels, actually not in addition, because beating the level doesn't matter. You have to get the crystal.
Yes. Was there ever a time where you beat a level and forgot to get the crystal?
No.
Oh, there's one level where that happened to me.
I'm going to guess. Was it the sewer level?
Yeah, it was the sewer level. Yep.
That's the only level in the whole game where you have to go off the path to get it.
And the thing was the path I chose, I thought was the off the path route. So I'm going and I'm like, oh, I found a secret area. And then I beat the game and I'm like, oh, I guess this is the right way to go.
That level does have a secret area. Did you find it? Where you have to jump behind the vault?
Behind the vault. Is that where you go down? You have to fall through another hole and then.
You know how a lot of those sewer levels, when you go into a room, it'll have a dead end?
Yes.
There's one room where you can jump through the door.
Oh, come on.
And then that's like a hidden area where you get more boxes.
Oh, that's so stupid. Who would do that? That makes me angry.
Well, there's another one. It's in, I think it's the one with the polar bear chasing you, but it's one of the ones where you're being chased, where he falls into a pit. And then you look back and not all the planks are broken. There's 3 planks left.
Okay.
You have to jump in the hole and it takes you to a new area.
That's dumb. That's stupid.
No, I would have never, ever thought of that.
Not at all. Like we talked about with Medieval and how I was like, oh, here's a well. Can I jump into the well? Because it's just an open hole and you can. And that's how you get to the secret area. Those are at least things that you look at and you say, oh, could I do this? But for a thing where it teaches you don't jump into the gaps and because you're going to die, then to hide stuff in the gaps is just cruel. Like there's no reason for it.
Most of this stuff I would never ever figure out if I didn't already know it from either learning as a kid or when I 100%ed it. Like I'm not even going to pretend like there was a way I could have figured that out.
No, I don't think anyone would. If a game teaches you rules and then they deliberately hide stuff and the things they taught you were bad, then that's not good for me. I don't like that.
I also just want to apologize right now. There are fireworks going off. So if you hear my dog barking in the background, that is why.
There's fireworks here enough?
Yeah, I don't know why, but I hear them.
Oh, weird.
People in my neighborhood will just light off fireworks all year round. I don't know why. I can hear them right now. They're just going. And he's going crazy because he hates it. So
I can hear the dog, but I can't hear the fireworks. So
well, that's good. I just figured keep this in the episode. That way, people hear,
exactly.
There is some yapping going on in the background. I'm sorry.
I mean, another negative that I found too, watching the footage that you have up, those bouncy boxes are also very inconsistent with how many times you have to bounce on them.
I have noticed that. In the first game, it was always 10.
Yep. And even in this, you start off, it starts as 10. So I was like getting used to it. Oh, 10, 10, 10. You get to some of the bonus levels, it's 4, it's 8, it's 2. I'm like, be consistent with the number of times this takes.
Well, I was going to save this for when we got to the later warp room, but it feels like they tried their best to not be as mean as the first game, but just some things slip through sometimes. You know what I mean?
They just couldn't hold back from why don't we just be as cruel as possible to these people?
Well, they don't do it in the main levels until 4 and 5, but they slip it in some of the bonus rooms. They're like, what if we fucked him over here?
Yep. We'll talk about it more in a little bit, but even with the perspective stuff, it's like they know it's a problem, but they're like, what if we just amp that up even more and make the perspective even harder to do stuff? So it's like they just lean into the meanness and bullying.
Very specifically, that rune level is the one I'm thinking of with the weird perspective stuff.
Rune level?
They're like the runes or whatever. They call them like runes of something. I don't know. There's multiple levels like that where you're walking on skinny paths. There's the things blowing fire at you. There's monkeys.
Oh, that one. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So are you talking about the platforms that are spinning, but they're angled?
Of course I am.
That's the one I was referring to. I was like, come on, guys. You know what your game is and you do this to us?
At least it's only a couple times in this game. I'll give them that.
Yeah, that is fair. And at least for that one, that's the only time they've done angled platforms that are rotating. So it's very impossible to judge anything that you're about to do.
But I think overall, this game is such a clear improvement from the first one that the little things like that I can excuse for the most part.
For the most part.
I mean, hey, as we go, we'll talk about the levels that annoyed us, but I think we're at about that point where we can kind of talk about each warp room, maybe go through some standouts.
Yeah, I don't remember levels per se per warp room, but yeah, we could definitely do that.
Just general, I'm not going to be like, this level is this, then this level is this. Like, I'm not doing that. My only real takeaway from the first warp room, I mean, the levels are all pretty straightforward and simple, but there are more cutscenes than I remember in this game. Like, the heads come up a lot to talk to you.
They do. And I feel like a lot of it isn't necessary, and I don't know the reasoning behind wanting to do it. It's like you collect a gem, it's like, congrats, no, keep doing what you're doing. It's like, did we really need that?
Well, I do like how the story kind of progresses because, like, you know, you're supposedly allies with Cortex, right? And now throughout this game, your sister, Coco, a new character for this game, by the way, we didn't talk about that.
Yeah. I forgot, yeah.
But she is like basically telling you Cortex is full of shit.
Yep. And they just make it apparent through the talking anyways.
But I do think in this game, the characters are a lot more well-defined. They actually feel like characters. Like it's more of a cartoon character vibe and not just like, here's a random mascot named Crash. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I love the addition of Coco. I think that's a phenomenal ad. And then when we get to 3, she's even more prevalent. So that's a great thing.
Yeah, she's great. All the new bosses, the characters are great. I mean, there's a reason why most of them are in every game after this.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I don't know if you knew this. I didn't know this until right before when I looked it up. But starting in this game, Cortex is voiced by Clancy Brown.
Who's that?
Mr. Krabs.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I never would have guessed that. That's crazy.
Yeah, he also, who else does he do? He plays Lex Luthor in the Superman show, like the cartoon. You ever watch Dexter?
No, it's on my list.
So there is a sequel series to Dexter, and he plays the killer, which was so funny because it's just like Mr. Krabs. His voice is so similar.
I mean, the same thing goes for Kenny something, the guy who does SpongeBob.
Yes.
Whenever we get to the Spyro series, he voices a lot of the characters in that too, and one of them is quite literally SpongeBob. So
I remember it very vividly. Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that like I thought the characters and the voice acting was all great too. We didn't really talk about it, but the minimal story that there is as it goes, I very much enjoyed what was there, and I enjoyed that there wasn't too much.
Yeah, I agree. I think they could have developed it a teeny bit more. Like whenever, what's his face? Was it Engine? Or no, who's the doctor?
Nitrous Brio.
Yeah, Brio. He'll come up and he's like arguing with you, but he only shows up, what, twice ever?
He shows up when you start getting the gems.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay. I was going to say then it would be cool to see him pop up more often. So I guess that's the way to get him to pop up more often.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to say about the levels in this, but the first boss is Ripperoo from Crash 1.
Yep. What was your thoughts?
I thought the boss fight was fine. It's very simple. I mean, it's a little more in depth than his fight in Crash 1, but it's like still like nothing really. Once you know the trick, it's over.
I give the game this. In the first game, Papu Papu was the first boss, and he's very simple. This one was a no-brainer, like very simple. You don't really have to think to play this one. I felt like the first game, Ripperoo, was a lot more challenging to get your timing right. This one, you just stand in the spot and wait for him to be done with what he's doing, and then you just hit him.
We will get into this as we go, but boss fights are not any of these games' strong suit, at least these first two. Like, there's, I think, one boss fight in this whole game that I think is a standout, and that is it.
I can't wait to get to that.
I think you know which one it is.
Probably. I was just bored with this boss fight. It was nothing. And another way to put what you're saying too is a lot of these boss fights can just be summed up as you let them hurt themselves and you just got to wait for that time to come. That's all it is.
Yeah, you're just like hanging out and then you wait for them to flash and then you spin them.
Yep. So opposed to the first game where, I mean, yeah, you did have a lot of waiting, but I felt like the first game had more involved bosses that you had to figure out what you had to do or what you had to hit to fight them. But with the Pinstripe, that one is more of a waiting game.
Yeah.
So
That one's the ultimate waiting game.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then moving on to floor 2, I really enjoyed the polar bear level.
Oh, even as a kid, that was my favorite level in this entire game.
Well, as we get through this episode and into Crash 3, I think a lot of the vehicle stuff is very hit or miss.
Yep.
Pretty much any of the gimmick stuff that are in these games, I either love it or hate it. And I always love just riding an animal in a Crash game. It's just fun.
And it's way more refined than the Warthog in the first one.
Night and day difference.
Yeah. It almost feels like the same. Like they didn't really change much. I think they just did a better level design to handle the animal running. But yeah, night and day, so much clearer. I still miss boxes, which was frustrating because of how close they are together.
I think it is easier to get all the boxes in these levels than it was with the Warthog and Crash 1, though.
Oh, 100% it is. I didn't want to go back and try to redo it again.
Do you know the trick with jumping on the polar bear in the warp room?
No.
So you know how he's sitting there, right?
Yeah.
If you jump on him repeatedly, I think it's like 5 or 6 times, you get like 10 extra lives.
Never would have thought to hurt the polar bear in the main menu.
You know, sometimes you just got to hurt him.
That's cool though. Nice little trick that that one's easy that you can easily like just stumble upon and do accidentally. Yeah. But I will say within the second warp room, this is whenever I started to realize that I don't know the best way to word this, but they're just redoing the same levels over and over again between warp rooms.
Yeah, this game starts with like, there is like an archetype of a kind of level, like the snow levels, the jungle, you know, the sewers, like whatever. Like, and then they have usually 2 or 3 of that kind of level.
Yep. So whenever we went to the second warp room and it's like, oh, here's the jungle level with the rocket board, and then here's the sewer level. I'm like, but we just did this. Why are we doing it again? It's a downside to me because in the first game, it's like we talked about, you start in the jungle, then you work your way to the villager stuff, then you work your way to the sewers, and then things are progressing through the levels as you're moving through. This just feels like you get a variety pack every single warp room, and it's just the same variety pack.
I know what you mean, but at the same time, you know, in Crash 1, it was essentially the same thing, except for you played those levels mostly back to back.
True, yes.
Like the first 3 levels of Crash are jungle levels. Like there's, you know, the bridge levels, there's the runes levels. Like they all do the same thing, except for this one, it's a little different, I guess, but it's all the same to me. I don't know.
Yeah, it was frustrating to have to just, oh, we're doing the sewer one again, and it looks just like the last sewer one that I just did. And it's frustrating too, and we'll get into, but it's not until you get to the 5th warp room where you actually start seeing innovation and like, oh, here's the creative levels now. And it's like, why do we wait until the end of the game to do different stuff?
I hear you. But again, Crash 1 was the same way. I mean, at the very end, there was like all the weird, like toxic waste and the robotics and the future stuff.
I get it. It's the same thing, but done 2 different ways.
I agree with you that it's better in Crash 1 for sure, but I just think it's like almost exactly the same.
True. Yeah.
But yeah. So floor 2 standouts. I mean, I don't really have much again. It's like you said, it's the same kind of levels, but
yeah.
They introduce the climbing in the sewer level.
Oh yeah, I did forget about that. That was, and I guess I should go back and go on what I just said and complain about. I do like how even when they do replicate a level, like, oh, you're on the snow one again, they at least give you a new enemy or a new mechanic that you have to use.
Yeah.
So whenever you get into like those levels with the bees and stuff, then when you go into it another time, now you have different enemies with those hammers, and it's like, okay, well now I don't know how to handle these. So I guess they do duplicate themselves, but they do add new stuff at the same time.
See, this is what I'm talking about. But we'll get to it in a minute, but I hate the bees.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, so they introduced the climbing from the grates and the sewers. It's cool. Like, it's not really good or bad. It's something else that you do, you know?
Yeah, I think it's at the time, whenever you do that, you're like, this is so cool. And because we've never really seen that as a kid, but then now it is like, yeah, I mean, it's a nice touch, but really not too difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't too frustrating, so I don't mind like mixing it up like that as long as it's, fair, and it feels like it mostly is.
hmm The only time I got frustrated with that was one of the secret levels in one of the sewers. You had to climb on the grate, and there's about like 10 lives that you had to hit. But the enemies, instead of going clockwise, they go counterclockwise while you're trying to climb into them. And I could not get the timing to save my life. And I wasted more lives than I was about to gather. So I just moved on.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, in that specific one, they're moving really fast too.
Yep. And they're lower than the grate. And the perspective, I never knew exactly where they were. So when I thought I had time, I wasn't. So
Well, you can crouch up to it, right?
what?
So if you hit the button that you would use to crouch, you kind of pull your body up to the grate. So like that's how you dodge them when they're down like that.
Never would have thought to push that button while on the grate.
I mean, when you look at my footage, you'll see I'm like moving a tiny bit, jump up, move a little bit, jump up. Like it's
That's
insanely
frustrating.
tedious for sure, but like there is a way to do it.
I'm just mad at myself for not thinking to push that button. I never would have thought, oh, I can crouch while hanging from the ceiling. But yeah, that now makes sense to why those enemies were lower and why I'm frustrated now.
Damn, dude, the Internet Archive's down for 2 weeks and you're like, I don't know how to play games anymore.
I guess so.
Well, usually I'm the one who's like, I didn't know you could do that. And you're like, well, I read it in the manual.
I know. And even it's been happening a lot more, actually. Like even in Silent Hill,
Yeah.
when it's like, oh, we can do the camera. Wait, what are you talking about? You can do the camera. I'm the one who usually finds out these things.
Hey, I was an expert on this game. So I think once we get to a new game, like next week that I've never played, it'll,
yeah,
be back to normal. Don't worry.
exactly.
But yeah, the boss for this warp room is the Komodo brothers, which
yeah.
is another just whatever boss fight. This is probably simpler than Ripperoo, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever like the guy starts throwing his swords, and I'm just standing on there's a part where I'm not even moving. I'm just waiting for it to be done. I'm like, is this really the boss fight right now? Like, I don't have to do anything.
It's almost like these boss fights are just to introduce you to these characters, not to be a good boss fight.
But at that point, that just sounds lazy.
I mean, it is lazy. I'm saying it is.
It's just, oh yeah, we don't, here's the new character, but there's no significant reason for us to be showing you them right now.
Yeah.
One thing too, I noticed in the clip we were just watching that you did it once. I found myself running at the camera at the start of every single level. And anytime like you fall somewhere, I always ran at the camera first.
I think it's the first snow level where you find the thing to break all the nitrous boxes. So
Yeah.
after I found that, I checked every single time because I couldn't remember if there were any more. And I don't think there are.
Yeah, there's not. I think it might be in 3 where they do it a lot more. But every single time, whenever you start in that warp room, I'd run at the camera and be like, okay, nothing. And then I'd go forward and actually start the level.
Yeah, that's what these games do to you. They condition you to search every single little spot in every level. And like most of the time, there's nothing there. And then the one time you find it, you're like, now I have to keep fucking doing this.
Yep, for the rest of this game. But yeah, I don't think there's any other standout levels in this one.
Yeah, I was going to move on to the third one, which there
Okay.
also really isn't much going on there either. That like is true standouts. I mean, it introduces those rune levels, which I was talking about earlier.
Yep.
There's the polar bear chase level, which I thought was a nice way to break up the pace from just running from boulders all the time.
Yeah, and especially whenever you have to jump onto the baby polar bear to outrun the bigger polar bear. Nice little touch.
Very like chaotic, fun moment.
It is. And also harder to control. So I think the running at the camera levels, I mean, they've established this is something that's really creative. People love this. these ones are a bit more challenging,
Hmm.
but not by much. So it's like, yeah, you're going to get caught up on some stuff here and there, but you're not going to die 8 times because of it.
Yeah, I mean, these levels are purely based on just like you panicking.
Yeah.
And like sometimes it works for sure, especially if you're trying to get all the boxes. Like there's just no way to do that on your first try, I feel like most times.
Hmm. And whenever you're on the baby polar bear, it just makes it even harder to get to the boxes. There was, those mines whenever you're running at the camera?
Yeah.
I don't think there was a single mine that I actually avoided. I'm pretty sure I ran into every single one.
That's crazy because I think I've barely ever hit any of them.
I don't know what it was with me, but every single time, like by the time I saw it was already too late and I just blow up. I never died because of it. Like luckily they give you enough time that even if you mess up, you can still move forward and pass the level, which was a nice touch. Because in the first game, you mess up for a split second and it's game over.
I think it's just a pattern with this game. It's more forgiving in almost every way. Even with the harder levels, it's still more forgiving, I would say. But yeah, I mean, that's really all I got for floor 3. I mean, this,
Yeah.
I feel like it is like floor 3 is the last time you're seeing most of the types of levels from the beginning of the game.
Yep.
And then we're kind of moving on to the second part. And I think floor 3 is where I started to feel a little bit of a difficulty spike.
Maybe. I couldn't really think of it off the top of my head of what that would be. Like, do you have a specific room that?
No, I think just in general, it's just a little bit harder. Like, it wasn't as much of a cakewalk as the beginning of the game was. Like, you can feel it starting to ramp up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Also, I don't think we said at the top of the show either that these levels, whenever you have the jungle level, whenever you have the forest levels, it is direct copy paste from the first game. Like they didn't change anything up.
We also didn't say this, but I think the graphics are significantly improved. So that helps.
Maybe. I'd have to see a side by side because I thought they were kind of the same.
It's a lot more colorful. There's a lot more stuff going on. It's a lot more detailed as well. I feel like the first game, a lot of the backgrounds are very vague.
All right. Well, it's been a year since we played that one, so
I didn't go back and look at it, but I'm just from memory, I feel like they're a lot more simple. Like there's a lot of stuff going on in these levels. Even if it's something as simple as the sewer level, there's so many little details you can look at.
I do agree with that. And I know that's a big thing too with whenever you go to the third game where they increase the amount of detail even more. So it's just so many small things. Like I remember 3, the levels look so beautiful on pretty much every single stage.
Can't wait for us to play that one next year.
I know. Oh, is that what we're going to do every year? Just or up until next year, we'll just do 3 and be done.
I was kind of thinking, yeah, then we could do Crash Team Racing, then Crash Bash.
There you go. Now every year, when the next video is going to come out.
I think it'd be cool if we did that. Like, with the series that we've started, over time we can kind of just work our way through it.
Yeah, I like that idea.
I mean, we still got a lot of Tomb Raider games to play. We still got Siphon Filter, multiple other series that we started. So,
yes. So next boss was Tiny.
All-time great Crash character.
I agree. But what did you feel about the fight?
Boring and lame.
Yep. I died probably 4 times on that fight, specifically because I got bored and I stopped paying attention to what I was doing. And I would end up jumping off or getting hit by him. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot to jump. And then I'd have to start over.
Again, it's just so painfully simple. There's just nothing really going on.
Yeah, it's just you zone out and you're just jumping from platform to platform, not really paying attention. And then again, and 3, is it 3? With his fight is like, oh, they amped it up and now it's great. And it's like, why don't we have that again here?
I know. But then you get to level 4, or Warp Room 4, I mean. And
oh boy.
Cortex straight up says to you, things are going to get a lot harder from here on out.
Yeah.
And I remembered this. It does get harder. Like we said, they introduced the bees, which are pretty annoying.
Yes.
So what you could do is you can go underground to avoid them. But
not at first.
Yeah. So before that, you just have to move fast because you can't spin them away.
Yep.
Then they let you go underground to get rid of them. But then they introduce this guy with a hammer. So if you stay underground for too long, he kills you.
Which I like. It's like, oh, hey, we're making it kind of simpler on you. Oh, cool. But now we're adding more difficulty to you. So I do like that flow they have with that. But my biggest complaint with the bees is when you have to, I wrote it down in my notes as hurry up and wait, where you have to run from the bees, but you also have to wait for the electric fences to turn off. And the timing of it is just ridiculous. Also, I don't even know what level you're doing here that we're seeing on the screen, because I do not remember that section at all.
So I am doing the secret level that you get from one of the river levels. You jump on the boxes and land on that platform like we talked about.
Oh.
Takes you here. You do this challenge level, and then you can get the red gem from the very first snow level in the game.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry for that. I was just like, this looks like a nightmare, and I don't know what I'm looking at, and I don't remember this at all.
It's pretty hard.
But yeah, sorry. Yeah. So it does ramp up a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the bees are the biggest thing that they introduce. This is the one that has the rune level with the really shitty 3D perspective stuff.
Yep.
The only other thing that I want to say is, and you could probably show this, I found another secret. I forget what level it was in, but it took me to the secret warp room again, and it opened up the final door, and it takes me to level 26, which is a level that doesn't exist. It's a secret level.
But okay, I didn't know that. So what is this? How?
It's okay. So it's another dark level. Like, you know how there's the one level based around darkness towards the end?
Yeah.
There's another one, and it's the secret level.
Interesting. But there's nothing like great after it. It's just you do another level.
Yeah, you just beat another level. I mean, it's cool that it. I mean, it's the same thing as Crash 1, where there were those levels you had to get the keys for, and they were just like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So same vibe. I mean, it's cool that it exists, you know, and you might not find it if you don't look for it.
Yeah. Now, one thing with the bees, can you kill them off the start?
I don't think so.
Because whenever we get to the levels where you can go underground, you can kill them at that point.
I think you can only kill them when you're underground.
No. Because I jumped up to hit the guy with the hammer, and it happened to be at the exact time that bees were coming up. And whenever I spun, I killed all the bees and I killed that guy.
Well, I don't know then. I thought that the only way to kill them was to like spin them while you were underground.
That could be it too. I don't know. It was a weird thing that happened. And I was like, I didn't know we can kill the bees.
You might have just got lucky.
Maybe.
But this brings us to the best boss fight in the game.
I figured this was going to be the one that you thought so.
So you're shooting Wumpa Fruit at the boss, which I thought was cool.
Did you remember to do that? Because I know he explains it in the beginning, and I guess I zoned out and wasn't listening to him. So for the first half of the boss fight, I'm just standing around. I'm like, what do I do to hit him? Like, nothing's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just remembered it. But, I mean, if he tells you, then that's on you, I guess.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really fun, though. I actually like died a couple times just not paying attention. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, the pattern is pretty much the same as you go. The most difficult part is aiming the fruit when he's moving back and forth with the rocket launchers opening up. I was like, I feel like this is impossible to hit at this point.
Most of the time, I would die during the second part of that when you break one of the rocket launchers and there's just one rocket coming horizontally at you. I would forget about it and then just die.
I was always so stressed that I was going to mess up the timing of the jump and have to do all that all over again.
But I think if all of the bosses in this game had some sort of twist like that, or even just like multiple phases like that, I think it would make a big difference.
Yeah, and that, again, that's what they do in 3. I think they take what they did here and they're like, oh, we could probably do more bosses like that. Let's do that for the next game.
I don't remember as much about 3 as I remember about this. I definitely remember some of the boss fights, but, you know, I'm excited to play that one again.
But also in 4, before we go into 5.
Okay.
This also, I believe 4 introduces the jetpack.
It doesn't. It's 5,
Oh, it is 5. Okay.
which is what I was just about to say. So floor 5 has 2 jetpack levels, and fuck the jetpack. I hate it.
Oh my god. I want to show my footage here whenever I'm doing this, and yours might be the same as mine. But I was a turtle moving through those levels, trying to get the inverted controls understood, trying to like, okay, X is forward, circles backwards, and like I'm just teetering along, just bobbing through the level, trying to understand what's happening.
So I actually went pretty fast, and what I did was I just ignored every box. I was like, I don't want to fuck with this. I don't care. I just want to finish these levels because I hate them.
After the first level, whenever I had to go into the next one, I did the same thing. I'm like, I don't care. I'm not trying to 100% this game. I'm flying through, avoiding every enemy, every box, and just going.
Yeah, I mean, this warp room also introduces the futuristic-y levels, which are some of the hardest levels in the fucking game.
Yeah. And just because they introduce new enemies that you haven't seen before, and you're like, okay, well, what's the thing to kill these guys? Like those giant ones, like the long-legged things.
Yeah, you have to slide into them.
Yeah, but then like there's one below you, and it looks like you can jump on their head to kill them too. You do that and you die. It's like, come on.
And there's the one that has the platforms you jump on, but if you touch the side of the platform, you die.
Oh, yeah. So I was like, oh, yeah, I guess anything orange is I can't touch.
Just very intentionally frustrating parts, really bringing me back to the first game for sure.
It really does. And I believe it's in World 5 too, when we have that really mean angled circular platforms that we have to do.
Mm-hmm. So then we have the dark level 2, which is fine.
I think you might be disagreeing with me on this one. I think the dark level in this game is worse than the dark level in the first game.
I thought it was easier, but I mean, I don't really like those levels very much. I think they're just kind of whatever. I'm just trying to get through them.
My biggest complaint with it was because now I think the first game was a lit up mask that follows you?
Yes?
Maybe. This one's a firefly. And instead of the firefly just following you, it's moving around as you're running. So then it's casting weird shadows on the ground, and you don't know if there's a hole in front of you, but there's not. It's just the way that it was moving, which seems intentional. I get it. But at the same time, too, is like, this is just way more stressful than it needs to be. Like, just having it dark is stressful enough that you can leave it at that.
I hear you. I agree with you. But I like that the Firefly is realistic and it's in the world. It's not just like a random mask they decided to put here for the level.
And I get that too. But the bonus level with the Firefly was so messed up.
I think I just gave up on that one. I don't remember.
I'm convinced you can't get through the bonus level with the Firefly.
You know what? No, I'm pretty sure I got to the very end and then just went for it and I made it.
And that's what the first time I went for it, died. Like, okay, there's a gap here. So second time, I just did the blind jump, which I feel is so mean. Like, why?
But at least it's on a bonus level, so you're not losing lives.
Exactly. You get to redo it as much as you want. But some of those bonus levels, when you have to redo them, the setup to get to almost beating it and then failing and then having to do that setup again is just takes so much effort.
Especially some of the ones where you got to hit the exclamation point and then go back. I'm just like, do I really care enough to do this again?
There's one of those rune levels. It might have been in World 5. It probably had to have been in World 5, where you see those invisible boxes once you start the level. It's like off to your left.
Yeah.
And you don't see the switch for that until you're almost towards the end of the level. It's like, do I really want to go backwards now to get to those boxes?
The answer is no.
No.
But yeah, that brings us to the final boss, which is a terrible, terrible boss fight.
You know, whenever we were doing this jetpack, I was like, oh, this is frustrating. And it didn't click into my head that I knew what the final boss was. And then once I finished up the levels, I'm like, oh no, I now remember what the final boss is. I still have to use the jetpack.
It took me like 3 or 4 tries. Like it's simple. It's just like trying to move as quickly as you can. But it just sucks. It's not fun.
It's not fun just in the controls. If the controls were better, it would be a funner boss fight.
I just don't understand why the boss before the final boss is the coolest one. In both Crash 1 and this, the final boss should be some big fucking thing. It should have multiple phases. It should be crazy. But instead, they're like, just spin them 3 times. I'm like, all right.
I forgot about all the details. So whenever I beat him the first time, I was waiting for him to come back as in like a bigger ship or something to be a second phase. So I was very confused when that was just it and I was done.
It's very strange because there's so many detailed things about this game. And then you have stuff like that where it's like, did they run out of time? Like, this game did come out, I believe, a year after Crash 1. So, like, they were quick.
True. And it makes me wonder if, like, we said this with Coolblers as well. Like, was the first game just a concept and they were like, okay, we have these ideas for things to do, but we don't know how well this game is going to do. And after seeing it all done, they're like, okay, well, we already have all these other puzzles and stuff figured out. Now we just put it into a game.
For sure. I definitely think that was part of it. But at the same time, just half-assing a boss is really frustrating to me, especially when it's your final boss. Like,
Yep.
If the first 3 bosses of this game were mid like they are, then we had the really good fight against Nitrous Brio. Then we had an even better fight against Cortex. Then I'd be in, you know?
Yep. I agree. And I don't really have much more to say. Like, it's so boring.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of brings us to the end of this discussion, unless you got anything else you want to add. I think we really went very in-depth with this game.
Yeah, there's not really any other complaints that we haven't already covered. So I think I'm good on my notes.
Awesome. All right, so before we get to our scores, let's take a look at a couple reviews, see how the game was received at the time. This game received very, very good reviews, obviously. And I picked the lowest review I could find, and then I picked one that was more closer to the average. So let me take a sip of water, and then I'll read these. So in the lowest review that I could find, Computer and Video Games Magazine gave it a 3 out of 5. And they said, as sequels go, this is Deja Vu City. I found myself rubbing my eyes in disbelief and had to quickly play the original game again, just to check this wasn't the same thing with a big number 2 slapped on it.
I kind of said that earlier too. The environments aren't that different to the point where I'm like, you could have done something a little bit between these ones.
I agree to a point, but I think that like this is such a surface level comment. Like if you actually play it and feel the way that it plays and like get into the nuance of it, it is very different.
Well, but he's talking about graphics and not the actual gameplay.
I know, but like I do think it looks significantly better. I mean, we can show some comparisons in this video if you want. I don't know if you want to go that deep, but like personally to me, I think it looks significantly better. As soon as we're done with this episode, I'm going to look at the other one and just see if I'm crazy or not. And maybe I am, but I feel like it does look way better.
I notice this particularly on the water jungle levels where it's like, okay, this is just the reused assets from the first game. And yeah, maybe they did improve on how they look a little bit, but it doesn't feel too different from the first game.
See, that's one of the ones where I feel like it does because the first game, it's so basic. Like there's just nothing on the sides of the screen. You know, it's just the plain water. There's not any detail to it. But in this one, there's so much more going on. I don't know. We'll compare after this.
Yeah, because maybe I'm just misremembering what it looks like.
I could also be wrong. So we're going to find out. But all right. Electronic Gaming Monthly gave it a 34 out of 40. And one of the reviewers said, Crash Bandicoot 2 is a great sequel because it is a much better game than the original. There are a lot of new gameplay elements, and the diverse level design is excellent. I also enjoyed the quirky bosses between each set of levels. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a hard time finding a good quote for like a compliment to this game because most of them are just like, yeah, it's better than the first one. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, tell us something different. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't really say much that we haven't already said. aside from the quirky bosses, I'm like, but we've beat that one to death already.
All right, well, that's going to bring us to our scores.
And I can't wait for this one.
All right, I have a number written down. I really am questioning it. So, like, I'm going to say my piece here, and then I might change it after you say yours. But I will start, and then we'll go from there.
I figure since it's your favorite game, it's best if you start. And, well, favorite in the series, then you should start to.
All right. So this is obviously an improvement in every single way. I think it looks better. It plays better. There's definitely more variety, even if some of the stuff is reused from the first one. But there are a lot of issues with this game still. Some of the platforming doesn't feel good. Some of, the 3D perspective stuff, the bosses are almost all trash. There's a lot of stuff you would never figure out on your own, which part of that is the charm for sure. But overall, I love this game, but it has its issues. So I'm going to go with an 8.
Holy hell. You went so much higher than I was thinking you were going to go.
Well, I mean, we gave Crash 1 a 6 or a 6.5, right? I mean, let me take a quick look
You
here.
gave it a 6.5.
So to say this is a 1.5 better, I mean, I think that's definitely fair.
I think you're crazy.
All right. Well, then let's hear your piece then. I was going to go even higher.
Jeez. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't have too much more to say than from what you literally just said. Does it do things better? Yes. Does it have, I mean, you're saying better graphics. I can see some of it here and there. They're adding more detail, trying to innovate a little bit more on the levels, lacking on the bosses compared to the first one, lacking on so much other stuff that we've already complained about. Because of that, I feel like they kind of even themselves out to where it's almost like the first game, but just slightly better. You're angry.
Crazy. You're crazy. But go ahead. Finish your thing.
So because of that, I think I gave it a 6 last time. Small improvements I do like. And because of that, I was going to go with a 6.5.
You're fucked up for that.
Okay, so I mean, I think you're crazy for going 1.5 higher.
I just think it's
compared to all the things you just complained about.
It's just so much more fun to physically play the game. Like, I don't know, being able to get all the boxes, being able to like constantly find secrets and new stuff. I don't know. I love this game. I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't have its flaws. Personally, I think the third one is worse than this one, but we will tackle that one when we get there.
Yeah. I mean, I have fond memories of the third one, but it could be worse or a little bit better. I don't know.
But like the things that bring it down for me, right? The boss fights, the jetpack shit, some of the 3D platforming and some of that stuff. But overall, it's such an improvement. And like, like I said, like I always say, I'm looking at this list. What would I rather play? Right. And putting this with like Dino Crisis, Resident Evil, Tony Hawk, the Tetris game we liked. Like that to me is where it fits. It does not fit in the 6.5s with fucking Hot Shots Golf, Diver's Dream, Jammer Lammy. Like you're crazy.
Here's my thought. So for the first one, we've said it's a good game, but it has a lot of flaws to it. Like there's a lot of negativity with this. With this one, they improve on a lot of stuff, but there's also more or new frustrations and things that are lacking. So I feel like it's almost like it's the same game. Like, sure, it plays better. It's more fun to play and it feels better to play. But the problems are still there. So it's like we're taking the same arguments for Crash 1, applying it to Crash 2 because it is. And it's just like, do these small improvements, such as the box collecting, not dying on the bonus levels, does that justify 1.5 over all the negativity you just talked about, like the jetpack and everything else?
I just feel like the controls are so much better that it makes up for so many of the flaws. Because in Crash 1, even if you're not trying to collect everything, you're just playing the game, it is insanely frustrating most of the time. Especially when you get to the latter half of the game. With this one, I never had an issue with how he controlled. It's just the additional gimmicks in the literal like 2 times there was the weird 3D stuff. But overall, it's a very fun game to play.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree. It is fun, but with all the flaws, it's almost like they were said, okay, the first one's too difficult, so let's ease up on it. But then they made it too easy on the second one up until the final one where they're like, oh, this might be too easy. Now let's ramp it up a little bit more.
I hear you. I just think this is one of the best 3D platformers on the PlayStation. Like, I can't think of many that I've played that I would say are better than this. I mean, I would see an argument for Spyro maybe, but that would be it.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to Spyro because...
But Spyro is also not really that much of a 3D platformer. It's more about collecting, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's where I stand on it. I don't know. I wanted to be excited because you said it was your favorite in the series. I'm like, oh, it's going to be so much better. But then, like, it is in some aspects, but worse in others. And
hey, you have your score, I have mine. They're going to even themselves out anyway. So
yeah, so that puts us at a 7.25. Which will put us with a Siphon Filter, Blaster Master, and Blood Omen.
I would put this above all those, but
I knew you were going to say that.
If it was completely up to you, what would you do?
Looking at the list and going with... No, I think you're right. I think it is above all of them. Because using your logic of which one would I want to play the most, I honestly would probably say I'd probably want to play this one over Siphon Filter.
Well, I was going to say, I would have heard you out on it going under Siphon Filter, but I think it goes above the top.
And that's what I was gonna argue for under, but the more I think about it, I think this would be above it for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's cool with me.
All right. Well, I mean, this has done significantly better than the first one. It is number 11, right above Siphon Filter, right below, funny enough, Namco Museum Volume 3. Out of nowhere, I do have a change to a list. I have a change to one of our scores.
Oh, okay. I've been done with mine, so I haven't even really thought about it.
Well, this is a new development. We just played Medieval, and I ranked that game pretty high.
Here we go. Let's go.
And going through the edit, watching it back, and listening more to your complaints about the game, I was like, you know what? I think I went a little too high on this game. I think I just love the collecting and how it reminded me kind of like Spyro, but with swords. But yeah, the problems were there, and I have to acknowledge that. So I do want to cut back on my score a tiny bit, and I want to bring it from 7.5 down to a 7. It's only a half point, but
you rating Medieval higher than Crash 2 hurts me deeply.
But I know.
That's fine. We have different tastes. That's why we're doing this.
But because of that, it brings it down to a 6.5, a half step down, which moves it significantly down the list. It puts us into Diver's Dream, Power Shovel, Jammer Lammy, the Blitz series, Namco Museum Volume 1, Cooler World. Yeah.
So I think I would put it between Namco Museum and Blitz. Like kind of right in the middle.
Okay.
But what do you think?
I probably would go above Blitz. Is where I was kind of thinking.
I'm also fine with that. I don't really feel that strongly about this section of the list. I mean,
yeah,
we always say this, but like the 6 to 7s are all these games that are like kind of good, but not as good as they need to be, not as memorable as some of the higher games, obviously. So any changes around this part of the list, I'm never really going to argue with you unless if you said put it at the top, I'd be like, you need to shut up. But
yeah, the biggest thing is like we look at what is above it. Jammer Lammy, Power Shovel, Diver's Dream. Those are games that are very unique to what they are. So it's like I couldn't go above that. But going at number 26 above Blitz, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean that sounds cool with me. And just looking at our list, 57 games ranked. We're going off here. We're still going.
It's crazy. And if we ever go back through the list, I'm just gonna be like, how much of these games are we gonna remember? Like all these details.
I know, like a couple years from now, we have a tie in the 6.5s. I'm like, there's 30 games in 6.5. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we had to compare this to Alundra. It's like, what was that game even about? I don't remember.
I mean, I even feel that way a little bit with some of the first games we played, like Soul of the Samurai. How much do I remember about that game? You know?
Yeah, we just have to look at the number and just hope that it's what we like. Just put that to our memory. Like, well, I gave it this low, so it had to have sucked because of X, Y, Z.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I did that thing where I went back and changed all the scores, because I'm like, I want to accurately represent how I currently feel about these games, having reflected on them, you know?
Yeah.
But all right, that is going to do it for us. Thank you so much for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this, please remember to like and subscribe. We will see you next week.